Picture a world where the pale glow of the moon isn't just a distant spectacle, but home to thriving cities, where glass domes glimmer under Earth light and sleek structures stretch toward the stars. This isn't a scene from a futuristic novel, it's the breathtaking vision artists and engineers are bringing to life right now. For centuries, the moon has been a symbol of the unknown, a silent companion in our night sky. But today, it's becoming the canvas for humanity's next great adventure. We're not just visiting the moon anymore, we're learning how to live there, to build there, to make it a place where creativity and innovation collide in ways we've only dared to dream. What does it take to design a city where the air is manufactured, the walls shield against cosmic radiation, and every sunrise lasts 14 Earth days? The answer lies in a partnership as old as civilization itself, the marriage of art and engineering. Artists imagine the impossible, sketching habitats that feel like home amidst the desolate beauty of lunar dust. Engineers turn those dreams into blueprints, solving problems like how to print buildings from moon rock or grow food in low gravity. Together, they're not just constructing shelters, they're crafting a new chapter in human history, one where the moon isn't a destination but a stepping stone to the cosmos. This journey isn't just about technology, it's about us. It's about the audacity to look at a barren landscape and see a future filled with life. It's about the artists who infuse these sterile environments with warmth and the engineers who defy physics to keep them standing. From 3D printed lunar bases to gardens blooming under artificial suns, every breakthrough is a testament to human ingenuity. And that's what we're exploring today, the bold ideas, the staggering challenges, and the brilliant minds reclaiming lunar architecture as our own. So let's step onto the moon's surface together and discover how close we really are to turning science fiction into science fact. The next frontier isn't just above us, it's within reach. The moon's stark, airless surface might seem like the last place for artistic expression, yet it's precisely this blank slate that inspires creators to reimagine what a human habitat could be. Artists don't just design buildings, they craft experiences. Imagine walking through a lunar atrium where the walls curve like Earth's horizons, or resting under a dome that filters sunlight into soft, familiar hues. These aren't frivolous details, they're psychological lifelines. In a world where every breath is engineered, beauty becomes as vital as oxygen. That's why studios like the European Space Agency's Lunar Initiative collaborate with sculptors and architects, turning cold technical specs into spaces that feel alive. One striking example is the work of digital artists who use virtual reality to prototype lunar living. They don't just model airlocks and radiation shields. They simulate how sunlight spills across communal gardens or how acoustics might carry laughter through shared spaces. These immersive experiments reveal something engineers alone might miss. The weightlessness of low gravity isn't just a physics challenge, it's an opportunity to redesign movement itself. Staircases could become obsolete, replaced by floating platforms that turn navigation into play. But artistry on the moon isn't limited to visuals. Sound designers experiment with how silence might be sculpted, introducing subtle vibrations or resonant materials to combat the eerie quiet. Textile artists weave fabrics that do double duty as radiation barriers and tactile comforts, embedding patterns that evoke Earth's forests or oceans. Even the choice of color palette is strategic: warm tones to counter the relentless gray of regolith, or reflective surfaces to amplify the scarce sunlight. This fusion of form and function isn't new. History's greatest cities thrived when artisans and builders worked in tandem, from the stained glass marvels of Gothic cathedrals to the biophilic curves of Singapore's gardens. The moon demands the same synergy. A habitat that ignores human emotion risks becoming a prison, no matter how technologically advanced. That's why the most promising lunar concepts today don't just solve problems, they spark joy. They remind us that even in the void, we'll carry our humanity with us, etched into every archway, every window framing Earthrise, every shared space designed not just for survival, but for soul. The true test of lunar architecture won't be whether it keeps us alive, but whether it makes us feel alive. And that's where artists lead the way, translating the poetry of human experience into structures that whisper, even on the moon, "You belong here." Building on the moon isn't just construction, it's reinventing the rulebook of engineering itself. Picture a world where concrete doesn't exist, where steel beams are too heavy to ship from Earth, and where the ground beneath your feet is a fine, clingy dust that grinds machinery to a halt. Yet engineers aren't just adapting to these challenges, they're turning them into advantages. Take lunar regolith, that abrasive dust covering the moon's surface. Instead of treating it as a nuisance, scientists are baking it into bricks using concentrated sunlight, or binding it with polymers to 3D print entire habitats layer by layer. These structures aren't just sturdy, they're radiation-shielded fortresses. They're porous walls mimicking the insulating properties of ancient Earth caves. But printing buildings is only half the battle. The moon's low gravity, 1/6 of Earth's, means traditional construction techniques collapse under new physics. Without strong gravity, a hammer swing sends a worker floating backward, and heavy loads behave like unpredictable balloons. The solution: robotics. Autonomous bulldozers guided by artificial intelligence can grade landing pads without human operators, while spider-like assembler bots climb half-finished domes, locking prefabricated segments into place. Some prototypes even use magnetic wheels to navigate the dusty terrain, avoiding the clogging that doomed Apollo-era rovers. Then there's the temperature problem. Lunar days scorch at 260 degrees Fahrenheit, while nights plunge to -280. Inflatable habitats, lined with aerogel insulation, offer a clever workaround, compact for transport, then expanding like origami into spacious living quarters. These deployable structures borrow tech from deep space missions, using self-healing materials to seal micrometeorite punctures automatically. Perhaps the most radical idea is treating the moon's environment not as a foe, but as a collaborator. Solar kilns harness unfiltered sunlight to melt regolith into glass for observation domes. Underground lava tubes, carved by ancient volcanic flows, become natural radiation shelters with ready-made ceilings. Even the lack of atmosphere is an asset without wind or rain. Buildings need no weatherproofing, allowing designs that would crumple on Earth. This isn't just about survival, it's about sustainability. Closed-loop systems recycle every drop of water and breath of air. Solar farms stretch across sunlit plateaus, feeding energy into electrolyzers that split lunar ice into hydrogen and oxygen, fuel and air in one process. The same innovations honed here might eventually terraform Mars or mine asteroids. Every solution born from lunar hardship ripples outward, proving that the universe's harshest classrooms teach the most brilliant lessons. What emerges isn't just a blueprint for moon bases, but a manifesto for humanity's future in space. The challenges are staggering, but the engineers tackling them are rewriting the limits of possibility, one regolith brick at a time. Long before the first rocket broke Earth's atmosphere, storytellers and artists were already mapping out lunar metropolises in breathtaking detail. Jules Verne's 1865 novel, From the Earth to the Moon, didn't just imagine space travel, it sketched a cannon-fired capsule with eerie parallels to modern spacecraft design. But it was the mid-20th century, the golden age of science fiction, that truly cemented our visual language for lunar living. Artists like Chesley Bonestell painted domed cities nestled in craters, their translucent arches glowing against the black sky, while writers like Arthur C. Clarke envisioned subterranean lunar bases with hydroponic farms and communal plazas. These weren't just flights of fancy, they were prototypes, shaping the ambitions of engineers who would later walk into NASA, drafting rooms with dog-eared paperbacks in their pockets. What's astonishing is how many of these speculative ideas became technical roadmaps. The concept of pressurized domes, sci-fi staple, underground habitats shielded from radiation. Predicted in pulp magazines decades before Apollo, even the moon's lava tubes, now a prime candidate for real-world colonization, were first explored in stories like Robert Heinlein's The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. These creators didn't just predict the future, they handed architects a toolkit of possibilities. When aerospace firms today model lunar villages, they're often riffing on Bonestell's sweeping curves or the modular designs from Fritz Lang's Woman in the Moon, a 1929 film so accurate it included a countdown sequence later adopted by actual space programs. But this relationship between fiction and engineering isn't just about aesthetics. Sci-fi's greatest gift was its willingness to confront human needs head-on. Early stories didn't stop at airlocks and solar panels. They asked how lunar settlers would fight loneliness under an unmoving sky, or design social spaces in cramped quarters. Those questions forced engineers to think beyond spreadsheet calculations, to see habitats as living communities. A 1954 Collier's magazine spread, illustrated by Bonestell, showed a lunar telescope with a rooftop garden, not because plants were practical, but because people would crave greenery. Today, that instinct drives real research into biophilic design for space stations, proving that the best blueprints account for hearts as well as hardware. The lesson here isn't just that dreamers inspire doers, it's that imagination is its own kind of engineering. When Verne described aluminum capsules, a metal later used in real spacecraft, or when Bonestell rendered lunar sunsets with scientific precision, they were doing more than telling stories. They were stress-testing ideas against the laws of physics and human nature, filtering out the impossible to reveal the plausible. That's why modern lunar architects still revisit these works not for blueprints, but for the boldness to ask, what if? In a universe that's always answering, try it. The moon's first cities may bear the names of scientists and astronauts, but their foundations were poured by poets with typewriters and painters who turned the void into a canvas. The architects shaping tomorrow's lunar cities aren't just building shelters, they're crafting worlds. Take Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, the firm behind some of Earth's most iconic skyscrapers, now turning their gaze upward to design habitats that defy the moon's harshness with grace. Their concept for NASA Artemis program features modular pods connected by airlocked corridors, each unit angled to maximize natural light during the long lunar day. But what's revolutionary isn't the engineering, it's the psychology. These aren't sterile white boxes, they're spaces with textured walls to combat sensory deprivation, communal kitchens where smells of hydroponically grown herbs anchor residents to earthly rhythms, and even gravity lounges where weighted furniture mimics the pull of home. Bjarke-Ingels group takes it further with their Moon Village concept, a cluster of 3D printed domes that look like they grew from the landscape itself. Instead of fighting the regolith, they use it as a sculptural medium, crafting undulating ceilings that diffuse light like desert canyons. But the real innovation is social design. central atriums where residents gather under projected Earth skies, vertical gardens tended as communal therapy, and flexible walls that let neighbors reconfigure privacy. It's a blueprint for how isolation could breed connection rather than loneliness. These designs reveal a seismic shift in space architecture. Where early concepts focused on bare survival, today's pioneers ask deeper questions. How do you design a window when there's no atmosphere to scatter light? Their answer: prismatic glass that splits sunlight into rainbows turns a technical challenge into art. How do you mark time without sunsets? Architects propose circadian lighting that subtly shifts from golden dawn to indigo night, syncing with Earth's rhythms to combat space-induced insomnia. Even lunar agriculture gets reimagined as sensory therapy, not just food farms but flower gardens where tending roses becomes a ritual against the void. This philosophy extends to cultural identity. A Japanese consortium's design incorporates sliding paper, thin screens, and tatami mats, while a Nordic team integrates saunas heated by recycled spacecraft fuel. The message is clear: moon cities won't erase earthly heritage, they'll amplify it, letting settlers import fragments of home to weave into something new. The most radical idea here isn't any single technology. It's the recognition that humanity thrives not just through oxygen and calories, but through beauty, ritual, and shared space. When architects today sketch lunar cities, they're not drawing bunkers, they're planting seeds for civilizations. And that changes everything. Imagine turning the moon's barren surface into a construction site without hauling a single brick from Earth. That's the promise of in situ resource utilization, a game-changing approach where lunar regolith, the fine gray dust covering the moon, becomes the star ingredient for building entire habitats. Scientists aren't just working with this dust, they're transforming it. One method, called sintering, uses concentrated sunlight or microwaves to bake regolith into sturdy bricks without additives. Picture giant solar mirrors focusing beams onto dust piles, fusing them into slabs as solid as concrete. Another technique mixes regolith with polymers shipped from Earth, creating a material that's lightweight yet strong enough to withstand meteorite impact. But the real magic lies in regolith's hidden superpowers. That same dust that clogged Apollo astronauts' equipment is now prized for its ability to block cosmic radiation, a critical feature when there's no atmosphere to shield settlers. Engineers propose layering regolith bricks around habitats like a protective shell, or even spraying it onto inflatable structures as a liquid slurry that hardens into armor. Some experiments go further, using 3D printers to extrude molten regolith into intricate lattice structures that are both lightweight and incredibly durable. These designs mimic natural formations like honeycombs or coral reefs, proving that the moon's harsh environment demands solutions inspired by Earth's own ingenuity. The implications are staggering. Instead of spending billions to ferry heavy materials from Earth, a single rover could harvest tons of regolith daily, feeding automated printers that construct entire bases while astronauts sleep. NASA's Moon to Mars Planetary Autonomous Construction Technology program is already testing robots that scoop, sort, and sinter dust autonomously, turning the lunar surface into a self-sustaining quarry. And because regolith varies across the moon, some regions are rich in glassy beads from ancient impacts, others in mineral fragments. Each locale might inspire unique architectures. This isn't just about practicality, it's a paradigm shift. For the first time, we're not just visiting a celestial body, we're learning to speak its language, to build with what it offers. The same dust that once symbolized desolation could become the bedrock of lunar civilization, proving that in the cosmos, even the humblest materials hold extraordinary potential when viewed through the lens of human creativity. The quiet hum of a 3D printer might not sound like the soundtrack of a revolution, but on the moon, it could be the sound of an entire city rising from the dust. Unlike Earth construction, where cranes and crews swarm over steel skeletons, lunar building sites will likely be eerily still, broken only by the methodical movements of robotic arms weaving structures from the very ground beneath them. This is additive manufacturing at its most extreme, not just printing objects, but printing entire ecosystems where every wall, floor, and ceiling emerges from a dance between artificial intelligence and lunar soil. At the heart of this transformation is regolith, that ever-present lunar dust now being reimagined as cosmic concrete. The European Space Agency's Moon Village project showcases how printers could work through the long lunar night, layering sintered regolith into domes that curve like natural shells. These aren't your desktop 3D printers. Picture industrial-scale nozzles mounted on rover chassis, crawling across the landscape like mechanical spiders spinning silk from stone. Their secret weapon, solar concentrators that focus sunlight into searing beams, fusing dust particles without needing glue or water. It's a process borrowed from nature, think coral polyps building reefs, but executed with machine precision. But the real genius lies in adaptability. Lunar terrain is riddled with craters and slopes, yet AI-driven printers can adjust designs on the fly. If a rover detects unstable ground, algorithms recalculate load distributions, thickening walls here or adding support arches there. Some prototypes even use LiDAR to map terrain in real time, ensuring each printed layer compensates for the moon's lack of flat surfaces. This isn't just automation, it's architecture with a nervous system responsive to every crack and contour. NASA Olympus project takes it further, envisioning printers that deploy from landers like unfolding origami. Once activated, they could erect emergency shelters before astronauts even step outside, their nozzles extruding quick-setting regolith composites into pressurized chambers. Future iterations might print entire infrastructure landing pads to prevent dust clouds during arrivals, radiation shields around greenhouses, even roads paved with fused regolith tiles to protect rovers from abrasive dust. What makes this more than just engineering is how it redefines construction timelines. A single printer working non-stop could complete a habitat shell in weeks, not years, while crews focus on life support systems inside. And because designs are digital, updates beam from Earth instantly. Imagine realizing a wall needs reinforcement after a meteoroid strike. Engineers on Earth tweak the blueprint, and by the next lunar morning, robots are already repairing the damage. This is the quiet revolution of off-world building. There are no hard hats, no cement mixers, just machines turning barren landscapes into habitable spaces, one meticulous layer at a time. The printers shaping tomorrow's moon bases aren't just tools. They're the masons of a new frontier, crafting not with chisels and mortar, but with algorithms and sunlight, proving that the future of architecture isn't just built, it's printed. Beneath the moon's cratered surface lies a labyrinth of ancient tunnels, not the stuff of myth, but the remnants of volcanic fury from billions of years ago. These lava tubes, some wider than subway tunnels and tall enough to swallow skyscrapers, could become the cornerstone of lunar civilization. While glass domes glitter under Earthlight, it's these shadowed caverns that may offer the ultimate sanctuary. Imagine descending into a vast, cylindrical chamber where the ceiling arches like a cathedral's, its walls naturally smoothed by millennia-old lava flows. Here, shielded from deadly cosmic rays and the relentless barrage of micrometeorites, entire cities could flourish in near-permanent safety. The advantages are staggering. On the surface, habitats require thick shielding layers of regolith or expensive imported materials to block radiation. But lava tubes come pre-armored, their rock ceilings acting as a natural barrier equivalent to several meters of concrete. Temperature swings that torment surface structures from scorching days to frigid nights, barely register underground, where the moon's crust maintains a steady -20 degrees Fahrenheit, easily managed with insulation. Even the psychological toll of constant meteoroid threats vanishes when you're tucked beneath a kilometer of solid rock. Engineers aren't just planning to occupy these tubes, they're reimagining them. Projects like Japan's Lunar Underground City concept propose reinforcing walls with 3D printed regolith scaffolds, creating multi-level arcades lit by fiber optic skylights piping down sunlight. Others envision sealing tube sections with inflatable membranes, turning caverns into pressurized oases where parks and plazas thrive under artificial biomass. The European Space Agency has even mapped potential tubes using ground-penetrating radar, identifying one in Mare Tranquillitatis, near the Apollo 11 landing site, with a ceiling high enough to stack 3 statues of liberty. But the real innovation isn't just safety, it's urban planning. Subsurface cities free the moon's surface for solar farms, telescopes, and terraced hydroponic gardens bathed in unfiltered sunlight. Elevators could connect underground neighborhoods to surface parks, offering residents the choice between sheltered comfort and open vistas. Some designs incorporate atrium pits of vertical shafts dug to the surface where sunlight floods downward, creating sunlit courtyards deep below. The challenges: reinforcing unstable sections without heavy machinery, managing dust in enclosed spaces, and ensuring emergency exits. Yet robotic scouts like NAS, a moon diver mission, are already testing solutions, rappelling into pits to analyze tube stability. Autonomous drones could map uncharted passages, while regolith boring robots expand narrow sections. What emerges is a vision of the moon as a layered world, surface industries humming above subterranean streets, all connected by elevators gliding through the crust like threads in a cosmic tapestry. This isn't retreating underground, it's building smarter. Lava tubes offer a head start in a place where every gram of shipped material costs a fortune. By working with the moon's geology rather than against it, we turn its violent past into humanity's future shield, a reminder that sometimes the safest path forward begins by digging deep. Biophilic design isn't just about adding plants, it's about rewiring lunar architecture to trick the human brain into feeling at home. Picture stepping into a greenhouse where the air hums with the scent of damp soil and growing basil, where the walls aren't cold metal but woven with vines that stretch toward artificial skylights mimicking Earth's diffuse glow. This is more than decoration, it's neuroscience in action. Studies on the International Space Station reveal that astronauts who interact with living greenery show lower cortisol levels and better cognitive function. On the moon, where the outside world is a monochrome wasteland, these pockets of life become psychological lifelines, reconnecting settlers to the rhythms of sprouting, blooming, and shedding that our species evolved alongside. The challenge lies in bending lunar constraints into opportunities. Without bees or breezes, pollination becomes a choreography of vibrating wands and gentle fans. Water, precious and recycled, flows in closed-loop systems where every droplet nourishes roots before evaporating back into the air, only to condense and fall again. But the real innovation is in the details, the way hydroponic trays are arranged at eye level so residents can run their fingers through trailing tomato vines, or how sound engineers pipe in recordings of rustling leaves to mask the omnipresent hum of life support systems. Some concepts go further, embedding microalgae tanks into walls that pulse with bioluminescent light, doubling as air purifiers and living nightlights. Light itself becomes a tool for wellness, Traditional space habitats blast occupants with flat, white LEDs, but lunar biophilic design plays with spectrum and shadow. Morning sunrise might bathe common areas in gold to trigger wakefulness, while afternoon light shifts toward blue to sustain focus. By evening, walls could project dappled patterns resembling sunlight filtering through forest canopies, easing the transition to sleep despite the unchanging sky outside. Even the lack of weather is addressed. Hidden Mister's release plant scented vapors before meals, creating the sensation of a passing rain shower. The boldest proposals treat entire neighborhoods as ecosystems. A German-led project envisions a central forest atrium where genetically dwarfed oaks grow under full-spectrum LEDs, their roots intertwined with mycelium networks that break down waste into fertile substrate. Nearby, a synthetic stream recirculates water over smoothed regolith pebbles, its burble masking the silence of a world without wind. Residents might picnic under cherry trees bred to flower year-round, their petals drifting through air scented with lavender from adjacent plots. It's a carefully choreographed illusion, yes, but one that could stave off the existential dissonance of living inside a machine. This isn't escapism, it's evolutionary medicine. Our brains still crave the fractal patterns of branching twigs, the soothing irregularity of natural textures, the subconscious reassurance that seasons still turn. By weaving these cues into lunar cities, designers aren't just softening the edges of spacefaring life, they're honoring a bond etched into our DNA over millions of years. The moon may lack rivers and forests, but it doesn't have to feel lifeless. In these engineered oases, the whisper of leaves and the weight of a ripe strawberry in your palm become more than comforts. They're affirmations that even in the void, Earth's essence travels with us. Artificial intelligence isn't just assisting lunar architects, it's rewriting the playbook for how cities are born. On Earth, urban planning evolves over centuries, shaped by trial and error, but the moon demands precision from the first foundation. That's where machine learning steps in, crunching variables no human could juggle. Radiation patterns shifting with the sun's cycles, regolith density varying by the centimeter, even predicting how microgravity might alter pedestrian traffic flow. Take NASA Lunar GPT project, an AI trained on decades of space station data that now generates habitat designs optimized for both safety and serenity. It might suggest angling a corridor 3 degrees north to minimize solar glare during peak work hours, or clustering sleep pods where magnetic shielding is thickest. Subtle tweaks that compound into life-saving advantages. But AI's real magic lies in simulation. Before a single gram of regolith is sintered into bricks, algorithms can model how a lunar neighborhood functions under stress. What happens if a meteoroid breach seals off the primary airlock? Machine learning maps evacuation routes before construction begins. How does social cohesion fracture when sunlight is rationed during 2-week nights? Neural networks trained on Antarctic winter overstudies propose communal spaces that diffuse tension. Some systems go further, like the European Space Agency's Socrates platform, which simulates decades of wear on hypothetical structures, flagging which weld points will fatigue first or where dust abrasion will erode walkways. These aren't just digital prototypes, they're time machines showing how designs age in a world without atmospheric protection. The most radical applications emerge in real-time adaptation. Future lunar cities might employ AI custodians, networks of sensors feeding data to algorithms that predict failures before they occur. A slight pressure drop in a greenhouse module could trigger drones to inspect seams for microfractures, while shifts in power consumption patterns might reveal a solar panel needing cleaning. Unlike Earth's smart cities, which retrofit tech into existing grids, lunar settlements bake AI into their DNA from inception. Every airlock knows its usage cycles, every water recycler forecasts its filter lifespan, creating habitats that feel less like machines and more like living organisms anticipating needs. Yet the ultimate test isn't technical, it's social. MIT's Space Exploration Initiative has AI generating thousands of community layouts, then stress testing them via virtual reality with diverse user groups. One surprising finding: circular plazas outperform grids in low gravity, as floating collisions decrease when people aren't funneled into right-angled intersections. Another algorithm discovered that placing gardens within sight of workspaces reduces spatial disorientation, a critical insight when there's no window to the outside world. This symbiosis of code and concrete hints at a future where cities aren't just smart but empathetic, adapting not just to physical constraints but to the unspoken rhythms of human happiness. What unfolds is a new paradigm for urban life, one where every decision is informed by layers of computational wisdom, where buildings learn from their inhabitants as much as their designers. The moon's first architects may be human, but their most enduring legacy could be the artificial intelligences they trained to dream alongside them, ensuring that our celestial outposts thrive not just through engineering but through understanding. Powering a city where the sun vanishes for 2 weeks at a time isn't just an engineering puzzle, it's a high-stakes race against darkness. Solar panels may dominate lunar designs today, their glittering arrays soaking up relentless sunlight during the long day. But nightfall brings a brutal truth. Temperatures plummet to -280 degrees Fahrenheit, and without energy storage that defies earthly limits, habitats risk becoming frozen tombs. That's why the blueprints for lunar power grids read like sci-fi manifestos: molten salt batteries the size of swimming pools, miniature nuclear reactors buried for safety, even satellites orbiting the moon to beam sunlight around its shadowed curve. Take the problem of energy storage first. Traditional lithium-ion batteries, the workhorses of Earth's renewable revolution, are hopelessly inadequate here. Their capacity would require absurd tonnage to bridge 14 days of night, so engineers are turning to thermal storage instead. Imagine vats of molten salt, heated to over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit during the day by concentrated solar mirrors. As night falls, this liquid treasure trove slowly releases its heat, driving turbines or radiating warmth through habitat floors. It's not just efficient, it's redundant, with multiple fail-safes ensuring a single crack doesn't spell catastrophe. The European Space Agency's concept takes it further, integrating regolith insulated silos that leverage the moon's own dust as a thermal blanket, proving once again that lunar solutions often lie in using the environment against itself. But storage is only half the equation. For true energy independence, the moon's pioneers are eyeing nuclear fission. NASA's Kilopower project has already tested compact reactors that could fit inside a lunar lander, each capable of generating 10 kilowatts continuously for a decade, enough to power multiple habitats or a small oxygen factory. These aren't the sprawling complexes of Earth. They're sealed, self-regulating units buried under meters of regolith for radiation shielding, their uranium cores humming quietly in the dark. Safety protocols borrow from naval submarine tech, with passive cooling systems that kick in even if every astronaut flees. And because uranium is scarce on the moon, early reactors would likely arrive from Earth, but future models might tap thorium, a safer alternative detected in lunar samples. Then there's the wild card, helium-3 fusion. This rare isotope, deposited over eons by solar winds into the moon's soil, could theoretically fuel reactors without radioactive waste. While fusion remains elusive on Earth, the moon's low gravity and vacuum might simplify reactor designs. prospecting robots could harvest helium-3 by baking regolith, a process already demonstrated in labs. Skeptics argue the tech is decades away, but visionaries like China's National Space Administration have already listed it as a long-term priority, hinting at a future where lunar mines power both the Moon and Earth. The boldest ideas look skyward. Orbiting solar mirrors positioned at Lagrange points could reflect sunlight onto permanently shadowed lunar craters, creating eternal peak sun zones for solar farms. Alternatively, microwave beams might transmit power from orbital solar stations to surface receivers, a concept Japan tested terrestrially in 2023. These systems sound fantastical until you realize they sidestep the Moon's gravest limitation, its achingly long nights. What emerges isn't just a patchwork of power sources, but a layered strategy where each method compensates for the other's flaws. Solar by day, fission by night, with fusion and orbital mirrors as eventual game changers. This isn't merely about keeping lights on. It's about enabling factories that smelt metal from regolith, greenhouses that feed thousands, and labs that push human knowledge forward. The Moon's energy portfolio will shape more than its survival. It'll dictate whether lunar settlements remain outposts or blossom into the first post-Earth civilization. Every watt generated there won't just power machines, it'll fuel humanity's cosmic inheritance. Water transforms from a basic necessity to the lifeblood of lunar civilization, not just for drinking, but as the raw material for breathable air, rocket fuel, and radiation shielding. Hidden in the Moon's permanently shadowed craters, where temperatures never rise above -250 degrees Fahrenheit, lie vast deposits of ice delivered by comet impacts over billions of years. These frost-filled vaults aren't mere puddles. The Shackleton crater alone may hold enough frozen water to fill thousands of Olympic swimming pools, but harvesting it demands technology as ingenious as the discovery itself. Picture robotic drills equipped with heated probes, melting ice in situ and vacuuming up the vapor before it can escape into the vacuum of space. Other concepts propose sandworm excavators that burrow through icy regolith, filtering out pure water while leaving contaminants behind. Purification is another hurdle. Lunar ice isn't the pristine resource of Earth's glaciers, it's laced with toxic volatiles like mercury and ammonia. Advanced filtration systems, adapted from Mars rover tech, use multi-stage distillation and catalytic converters to strip away impurities. The result, water so clean it makes terrestrial desalination plants seem primitive. But the real innovation lies in what happens next. Electrolyzers, powered by lunar solar farms, will split every molecule into oxygen for habitats and hydrogen for fuel cells, creating a self-sustaining loop where respiration and energy generation become two sides of the same process. Closed-loop systems turn waste into wealth. Shower runoff, sweat condensate, even urine gets purified through ceramic filters and bioengineered algae tanks, reclaiming 98% of every drop. NASA Environmental Control and Life Support System, honed aboard the International Space Station, proves it's possible. Lunar bases will simply scale it up, with AI monitoring thousands of microtransactions in the water economy. The goal isn't just efficiency, it's resilience. A single breach or pump failure could spell disaster, so redundancy is woven into every pipe and valve. The implications ripple far beyond survival. Water-rich craters could become hubs for refueling interplanetary ships, slashing the cost of Mars missions by eliminating the need to haul propellant from Earth's gravity well. Underground ice deposits might even be sculpted into radiation shelters, their hydrogen-rich molecules absorbing cosmic rays better than any metal alloy. And in the distant future, electrolyzed hydrogen could feed fusion reactors, turning the moon into a galactic gas station. This isn't just about finding water, it's about learning to treat it as currency. Every sip drunk, every rocket fueled, every oxygen molecule breathed will trace back to those shadowed craters, making lunar prospectors the new gold rush pioneers. The difference, this time, the treasure isn't just valuable, it's vital. Getting around the moon won't look anything like rush hour on Earth. With no atmosphere to clog machinery and gravity just 1/6 as strong, lunar transportation networks are being reimagined from the ground up, or more accurately, from the regolith down. Pressurized tubes could snake beneath the surface, shielding pedestrians from radiation while linking habitats like arteries in a subterranean metropolis. Picture walking through a tunnel where the ceiling glows with simulated daylight, your magnetic boots clicking softly against the floor as you pass hydroponic gardens fed by recycled water from the settlement's life support systems. These corridors wouldn't just be utilitarian passageways, they'd be social spaces lined with benches where residents pause to chat under Earthrise projections. But the real innovation happens above ground. Without air resistance, even simple solutions take on new dimensions. Human-powered flight, once the stuff of myth on Earth, becomes startlingly practical. Strapping on wingsuits with solar fabric membranes, settlers could leap from crater rims and glide for kilometers, steering around obstacles with subtle shifts in body weight. For those less adventurous, hopping pods, small pressurized cabins on spring-loaded legs, might bounce across the terrain at 30 kilometers per hour, their gyroscopes keeping passengers upright even as the landscape blurs past. And because lunar dust doesn't behave like Earth sand, electrostatic wheels could repel the abrasive particles, keeping rover mechanisms running smoothly for years without maintenance. Long-distance travel demands bolder thinking. Magnetic levitation trains floating above tracks made from melted regolith could shuttle between outposts at 300 kilometers per hour, their low-energy systems powered by solar arrays lining the route. The absence of weather means no snow delays or heat warping, just relentless efficiency. For cargo, engineers are toying with an even wilder concept: a lunar space elevator. Anchored near the equator, a ribbon-like tether would extend toward Earth, allowing payloads to climb into orbit using solar power instead of rocket fuel. While Earth-based elevators remain sci-fi due to our planet's gravity, the moon's weaker pull makes this plausible with existing materials like Kevlar. The brilliance of these systems lies in their interconnectedness. A miner in Shackleton Crater might take a maglev to the central hub, switch to a hopping pod for the final leg to a lava tube habitat, then glide home via wingsuit, all without ever breathing bottled air or wasting precious energy. This isn't just about getting from point A to B. It's about weaving a web of mobility that makes the moon feel small and accessible, even as settlements sprawl across its surface. The transportation revolution here won't just serve lunar cities. It'll teach us how to move through all the airless, low-gravity worlds waiting beyond. The moon has no borders, no flags planted deeply enough to claim it, only footprints that whisper of temporary visits. Yet as lunar settlements shift from blueprints to reality, humanity faces a question as old as exploration itself: who gets to define life beyond Earth? Unlike Antarctica or the high seas, celestial territories exist beyond terrestrial laws, forcing us to confront whether lunar culture will mirror Earth's divisions or transcend them. Already, architects are weaving subtle answers into their designs. A Japanese-led habitat incorporates sliding shoji screens that diffuse artificial sunlight like rice paper, while a Scandinavian proposal includes communal saunas where settlers sweat out cosmic stress under LD auroras. These aren't just aesthetic choices, they're cultural lifelines, preserving earthly identities under an alien sky. But can traditions survive unchanged in a world without dawn choruses or seasonal harvests? Anthropologists studying Mars simulations note how quickly rituals adapt. Participants invent holidays marking first sunlight after dust storms or craft new cuisines from hydroponic crops. The moon's 14-day nights and silent vistas will birth customs we can't yet imagine. Artists like Moon Village Association's director Giuseppe Riaboldi envision hybrid festivals, perhaps a lunar new year where lanterns float in low gravity or poetry slams recited over crater radio to distant outposts. Language itself may splinter, blending technical jargon with creative slang, regolithers for dust-stained pioneers, earthsick for longing our blue-hued home. Governance presents thornier challenges. The Outer Space Treaty forbids national claims but doesn't prevent corporate or collective ownership. Will lunar zoning resemble Dubai's free-for-all or Bhutan's mindful planning? Some proposals advocate for a Lunar Cultural Heritage Act, protecting Apollo landing sites as shared monuments while reserving new territories for communal use. Others fear a gold rush mentality, where mining conglomerates dictate urban layouts. The most radical ideas come from indigenous scholars like Dr. Danica Summer from the Navajo Nation, suggesting lunar cities adopt principles of seven-generation stewardship, at designing not for quarterly profits but for descendants 7 generations unborn. What emerges may defy categorization. A child born in Shackleton Crater might celebrate Diwali by floating marigold-shaped drones into lava tube caverns, study Mandarin via VR calligraphy lessons, and pledge allegiance to a watershed-based bioregion rather than any Earth nation. Architects are already prototyping neutral ground modules where decor rotates daily, one evening featuring Brazilian capoeira performances, the next hosting Saudi coffee ceremonies. This cultural fluidity could birth something unprecedented, a civilization that identifies first as lunar, second as terrestrial. The moon's greatest gift might be perspective. From its surface, Earth appears fragile, a blue marble without visible borders. Settlers gazing homeward may find nationalism impossible to sustain, forging instead a culture rooted in mutual vulnerability and cosmic awe. The structures we build there won't just house bodies, they'll shape minds, teaching each generation that identity, like gravity, behaves differently when you're halfway to the stars. The moon's economy won't run on dollars or euros, it'll trade in sunlight, rare minerals, and the sheer novelty of being human in a place humans were never meant to be. For lunar cities to thrive, they'll need to generate value that justifies their astronomical costs, and that means inventing industries that don't exist on Earth. Picture a luxury hotel where guests pay $500,000 credits to sleep under a dome with Earthrise views, their stay subsidizing the oxygen generators and water recyclers that keep the colony alive. Or imagine robotic mining rigs scraping the lunar surface for helium-3, an isotope so rare on our planet it could revolutionize fusion energy back home, creating a $1 trillion pipeline between the moon and Earth's power grids. But tourism and mining are just the opening acts. The real game changer might be off-world manufacturing. In the moon's low gravity and vacuum, factories could produce materials impossible to craft on Earth: ultra-pure glass for next-gen semiconductors, or alloys with perfect crystalline structures for spacecraft hulls. NASA already experimenting with 3D printing tools from simulated regolith, proving that lunar workshops could one day build satellites in orbit, slashing launch costs. And then there's the ultimate commodity, real estate. With corporations like SpaceX and Blue Origin vying for prime lunar acreage, we might see the first off-world property market, where crater rims with eternal sunlight sell like beachfront condos. Funding these ventures demands unprecedented collaboration. The International Lunar Economic Consortium, a fledgling alliance of space agencies and private firms, hints at the future. Shared infrastructure where NASA landing pads host private rovers and European solar arrays power Chinese research labs. This isn't just cooperation, it's interdependence where rival nations and companies become stakeholders in each other's success. Crowdfunding could play a role to imagine Kickstarter campaigns for the first lunar greenhouse, with backers receiving framed leaves from its first harvest. Even advertising might morph. A sports drink brand could sponsor an athlete's low-gravity marathon, broadcast live to billions on Earth. The moon's economy will hinge on two currencies, ingenuity and patience. Early ventures will hemorrhage money, relying on governments and visionaries willing to invest decades before turning profit. But history shows that frontier economies eventually flip. Think of how Alaska's ice fields or the Sahara's oil reserves transformed from money pits to gold mines. The difference, lunar wealth, isn't just about extracting resources, it's about proving that humanity can thrive beyond its cradle, turning the moon into a springboard for the asteroid belt and Mars. Profitability here won't just balance ledgers, it'll measure our species' capacity to reach farther than ever before. What emerges is an economic ecosystem as bold as the architecture it supports, where every solar panel and water extractor doubles as an investment in our interplanetary future. The moon's first trillionaires won't just be miners or hoteliers, they'll be the ones who saw dust and saw possibility, who looked at an airless rock and recognized the ultimate startup incubator. And that's the real lesson. Sustainability off-world isn't about replicating Earth's models. It's about rewriting the rules of value itself, one regolith-sourced silicon wafer at a time. The moment humanity plants its first permanent flag on the moon, we'll face a paradox: how to govern a territory that international law says belongs to no one. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967, signed at the height of the Cold War, was designed to prevent celestial colonialism, declaring that no nation can claim sovereignty over the moon or other worlds. But treaties written for footprints and flags struggle to address the reality of bustling lunar bases, mining operations, and generations of off-world births. Legal scholars are racing to draft frameworks for what comes next, and their blueprints range from maritime law adaptations to entirely new social contracts forged in the dust of Mare Tranquillitatis. One approach gaining traction is the common heritage model, treating the moon like Antarctica, a scientific preserve where nations share resources but forfeit territorial claims. The Lunar Gateway Project, a multinational orbital station, hints at this future, with modules contributed by various countries operating under agreed protocols. But Antarctica has no breathable air or mineral wealth worth trillions, and lunar ice deposits could fracture this delicate balance. Legal think tanks like the Moon Dialogues propose a Lunar Resources Authority, modeled after the International Seabed Authority, to license mining claims and distribute profits equitably. The catch: enforcement requires buy-in from spacefaring nations who'd rather not split their helium-3 windfalls. Corporate settlements add another layer of complexity. When a private company builds a habitat on leased lunar land, whose laws protect its workers? American labor statutes, the host country's regulations, or a new off-world employment code guaranteeing rest periods calibrated to the 28-day lunar cycle. Legal scholar Michelle Hanlon suggests modular jurisdiction. Inside the habitat, the company's home country laws apply. Outside, its treaty-governed commons. But what happens when a miner from Indonesia sues a Canadian employer over injury claims? lunar courts may need to blend legal traditions into hybrid systems, borrowing from maritime arbitration and space law precedents. Ethical dilemmas compound these legal tangles. Should corporations be allowed to strip mine historic sites like the Apollo landing zones for construction materials? Paleontologists warn that regolith contains a 4 billion-year archive of solar system history. Destroying it for quick profits would be like grinding up the Rosetta Stone for gravel. And then there's the question of labor conditions in an environment where a single airlock failure is lethal. Unions are already demanding that lunar workers receive hazard pay at 10 times Earth rates, along with psychological support for the isolation. The boldest proposals reject terrestrial models entirely. The Open Lunar Foundation advocates for a moon constitution, drafted by settlers themselves through decentralized blockchain voting. Their test case, a clause granting legal personhood to the moon's ecosystem, preventing ecocide by recognizing craters and lava tubes as protected entities. Meanwhile, indigenous groups like the Maori Space Collective argue that lunar governance should incorporate ancestral principles of guardianship, where humans are caretakers rather than conquerors. This legal frontier won't just shape the moon, it'll redefine how humanity interacts with the cosmos. The precedents set here will ripple outward to Mars and beyond, determining whether we export Earth's rivalries or finally evolve beyond them. The irony is profound. To build a future free of old-world conflicts, we must first navigate a labyrinth of contracts, courts, and compromises. The moon's next giant leap may not be technological at all. It might just be a signature on a document that declares, for the first time in history, what it means to be a citizen of somewhere other than home. The moon's barren landscapes hold more than just the raw materials for cities. They contain answers to questions we haven't even thought to ask yet. Imagine laboratories where botanists watch plants spiral toward artificial suns in slow motion, low gravity, their roots spreading in ways that rewrite textbooks on growth patterns. Or medical labs where researchers track generational changes in human bone density and muscle structure, unlocking secrets about aging that Earth's gravity obscures. These aren't hypothetical scenarios. They're the inevitable next chapter in lunar development, where every habitat doubles as a research station and every settler becomes a data point in humanity's greatest experiment. What makes the moon the ultimate laboratory isn't just its lack of atmosphere or reduced gravity, it's the sheer breadth of disciplines it transforms. Geologists will finally get their hands on pristine samples of the moon's mantle, drilled from depths untouched by billions of years of weathering. Astronomers will deploy telescopes on the far side, free from Earth's radio chatter, listening for whispers of the early universe. Even philosophers and artists will find fertile ground here, studying how human cognition shifts when Earth is just a blue dot in the sky, or how creativity flourishes in a world where every sunrise lasts 2 weeks. The Apollo missions gave us moon rocks. Permanent bases will give us entirely new frameworks for understanding existence. Education won't just happen in these labs, it'll explode from them. Picture university students from Nairobi to Oslo spending semesters in lunar domes, their classrooms floating above regolith gardens as they learn astrophysics by mapping craters firsthand. MIT and ETH Zurich are already sketching plans for microgravity engineering programs, where students test prototypes in conditions no Earth-based simulator can replicate. And because lunar research will demand interdisciplinary thinking, traditional academic silos may crumble faster than moon dust under a rover's wheels. A single study team might include a materials scientist, a psychologist tracking isolation effects, and a chef experimenting with hydroponic basil, all collaborating under one pressurized roof. The ripple effects could redefine learning itself. Virtual reality will let Earthbound students join lunar field trips, manipulating robotic arms to collect samples or joining live dissections of extremophile bacteria cultured in radiation-rich environments. Meanwhile, lunar settlers will likely develop their own pedagogical styles, perhaps ditching rigid schedules for cycles tied to Earthrises, or teaching toddlers physics through play with floating objects. The very concept of a classroom may expand to include lava tube exploration teams and zero-gravity fabrication workshops, but the most profound research won't come from planned experiments, it'll emerge from the unexpected. Just as Antarctic stations discovered the ozone hole by accident, lunar labs could stumble upon breakthroughs we can't yet fathom. Maybe a biologist tending algae farms will notice a mutation that revolutionizes cancer treatments, or a structural engineer will mimic lunar regolith's properties to create earthquake-proof concrete back home. The moon doesn't just offer new data, it offers new ways of thinking, untethered from terrestrial assumptions. This is why education and research aren't just side benefits of lunar cities. They're the core justification for their existence. Every dollar spent on a moon base isn't just buying real estate. It's funding 1,000 doctoral theses, 1,000,000 aha moments, and answers to questions we're only beginning to formulate. The greatest legacy of our lunar ambitions may not be the cities we build, but the minds they'll shape are generations of scientists, artists, and visionaries who first glimpsed their potential under an alien sky. Art transforms from pigment and stone to something far more profound when placed against the vast emptiness of the lunar surface. The moon's first art installations won't just hang on walls, they'll interact with the environment itself, turning craters into canvases and sunlight into a collaborator. Take Japanese artist Azuma Makoto's proposal, a delicate glass sculpture filled with earthly moss, designed to fracture slowly under the moon's temperature swings, its cracks mapping the passage of time in a place where clocks run differently. Or consider the Lunar Light Beacon, a project by a collective of Icelandic and Chilean artists, a towering prism that refracts sunlight into spectral patterns visible from Earth during lunar dawn, turning the moon into a celestial kaleidoscope for billions to witness. Sound artists are redefining silence in a world without air to carry vibrations. Dutch designer Xander Koken experiments with seismic speakers embedded in regolith, translating meteorite impacts into low-frequency pulses you feel through your boots rather than hear. These installations won't just be observed, they'll be experienced viscerally, using the moon's unique physics to create art that would collapse under Earth's gravity or drown in its atmosphere. The very absence of sound becomes a medium. Composer Sarah Anglis plans to string piezoelectric harps across lava tubes, their strings plucked by temperature fluctuations to generate eerie, algorithmically shifting chords. The most radical proposals blur the line between monument and utility. Team Lab's Floating Universe envisions a constellation of mirrored orbs drifting above the surface on solar-powered repulsors, serving dual purposes as art and emergency navigation beacons for lost travelers. Meanwhile, the Orbit Pavilion, a concept originally designed for NASA, a jet propulsion laboratory, could be adapted for the moon, its parabolic dish translating orbital data from lunar satellites into an ever-changing soundscape, making the invisible dance of spacecraft audible. What makes lunar art revolutionary isn't just its location, it's the dialogue it creates between worlds. A single sculpture casting shadows across the Descartes Highlands does more than decorate. It becomes a shared reference point for every human gazing upward. When children in Lagos and Oslo alike point to the same gleaming installation during full moon, art transcends borders in ways impossible on Earth. The moon's galleries won't need placards explaining their significance. Their mere existence, shimmering against the void, will remind us that creativity is as fundamental to exploration as oxygen tanks or solar panels. The challenges are as stark as the sunlight. Art must withstand radiation that bleaches colors, temperature swings that shatter lesser materials, and micrometeorite storms that pit glass like shotgun blasts. Yet these constraints breed innovation. Sculptors collaborate with aerospace engineers to develop radiation-resistant pigments, while textile artists weave with lunar basalt fibers that glitter like starlight. The moon doesn't just host art, it demands new forms of it, pushing creators to abandon earthbound assumptions. This emerging movement asks profound questions. Does art made where no life exists carry different meaning? How does a piece change when its audience is primarily viewing it through telescopes from 250,000 miles away? Perhaps the answers will emerge from projects like The First Word, a participatory installation inviting Earthlings to vote on a single message to be etched permanently into a lunar monolith, a communal whisper cast across the cosmic dark. The moon's artistic renaissance won't wait for cities to rise. Already, tiny cultural payloads hitch rides on robotic landers, a ceramic tile etched with poetry here, a diamond containing digital archives there. These humble beginnings seed a future where art isn't an afterthought to survival, but proof that humanity's greatest export isn't technology, but the irrepressible need to create beauty where none existed before. When those first sculptures catch sunlight in the sea of tranquility, they won't just reflect light, they'll reflect us. Growing lettuce on Earth is simple: sun, soil, and water. But on the moon, every leaf of basil becomes a triumph of ingenuity over impossibility. Lunar farming won't just sustain life, it'll redefine what agriculture means when sunlight is a scheduled resource and gravity is more suggestion than law. Picture vast underground chambers where crops spiral upward in hydroponic towers, their roots misted with nutrient-rich water recycled from settlers' breath and sweat. Or aeroponic modules where plants dangle in air, their roots sprayed with fog containing precisely measured doses of potassium and nitrogen, every drop accounted for in a world where waste is unaffordable luxury. These aren't just gardens, their life support systems with photosynthesis as their engine. The challenges begin with basics we take for granted. Soil doesn't exist on the moon, just regolith, that abrasive dust devoid of organic matter. But scientists at NASA Kennedy Space Center have coaxed Arabidopsis, a relative of mustard greens, to sprout in simulated lunar dirt by inoculating it with bacteria that unlock trapped nutrients. Meanwhile, the European Space Agency's ME-LI SSA project loops human waste into the food cycle, using algae to scrub carbon dioxide from the air and produce edible biomass. It's farming stripped to its essence, light, water, and elements rearranged into nourishment through sheer biochemical willpower. Light itself becomes a design tool. With the moon's day-night cycle lasting 28 Earth days, crops can't rely on natural sunlight. Instead, LED arrays bathe plants in tailored spectra, extra blue wavelengths to compact lettuce leaves, added red to boost tomato flowering. Researchers at the University of Arizona's Controlled Environment Agriculture Center have found that altering light recipes can double yields while reducing water use by 95%. Some lunar concepts take this further, arranging farms in concentric rings where crops rotate through customized, light zones, like passengers on a slow-moving carousel, each species getting precisely what it needs when it needs it. Then there's the wild card, low gravity's effects on plant behavior. On the International Space Station, zinnias grew pollen tubes in erratic directions, while wheat stalks became disoriented without Earth's gravitational pull. Lunar farmers might combat this with gentle air currents to simulate wind, or by genetically tweaking crops to thrive in perpetual freefall. The payoff. Plants that expend less energy fighting gravity could dedicate more resources to fruiting imagined strawberry bushes heavy with berries the size of plums, or wheat stalks so densely packed they resemble golden cornucopias. Protein presents its own puzzle. Shipping beef from Earth is laughably impractical, so labs in Berlin and Singapore are adapting cellular agriculture for lunar conditions. Picture bioreactors no larger than microwaves, where cultured meat grows from animal cells fed with lunar-grown algae sugars. The first lunar steaks might resemble hybrid creations, mushroom scaffolds giving structure to lab-grown rabbit cells, or cricket flour enriched with spirulina for essential amino acids. Over time, these innovations could birth an entirely new cuisine. Moon-made dishes blending hydroponic herbs with cultured proteins, their flavors subtly altered by the minerals in recycled water or the unique spectra of artificial light. The most revolutionary aspect isn't the technology, it's the psychology. On a world where every calorie is precious, farming transcends subsistence to become communal ritual. Lunar colonists might gather for weekly harvest festivals, sampling the first ripe tomatoes grown under a dome's violet-tinged lights. Children could tend personal plant pods, their faces reflected in glossy eggplant leaves as they learn that food doesn't come from plastic wrappers, but from cycles as old as life itself. These farms won't just feed bodies, they'll nourish the human spirit, turning the act of growing into a daily reaffirmation that even in the void, life finds a way. What emerges is a food system that mirrors the moon itself, harsh yet yielding, demanding yet generous. The lettuce sprouting in a recycled water hydroponic tray, the cultured salmon fillet textured with lunar-grown algae, these aren't just meals. They're declarations that wherever humanity goes, we'll transform barrenness into bounty, one seed, one cell, one bite at a time. Living on the moon means rewriting the rules of human biology. Our bodies evolved over millions of years to thrive under Earth's gravity and magnetic field, conditions that simply don't exist on the airless lunar surface. Without constant adaptation, settlers could return to Earth as medical emergencies, their bones brittle as chalk and their muscles withered from disuse. Lunar hospitals won't just treat illness, they'll wage daily war against the environment itself. Picture a ward where patients spend hours in centrifuges, spinning to simulate Earth's pull and trick their skeletons into maintaining density. Nearby, virtual reality therapists guide astronauts through cognitive exercises to combat the neurological fog caused by floating too long in low gravity, a condition doctors now call space brain. Radiation is the silent saboteur of lunar health. Earth's magnetic field deflects most cosmic rays, but on the moon, settlers will absorb the equivalent of 100 chest X-rays annually. Shielding helps, yet some particles still penetrate, damaging DNA and elevating cancer risks. The solution: smart medicine that anticipates harm before symptoms appear. Nanosensors could patrol the bloodstream, detecting radiation-induced cell mutations early, while gene therapies borrowed from cancer research might teach cells to repair themselves more efficiently. Researchers at the Weill Cornell Medicine Space Research Institute are even testing temporary radiation vaccines, drugs that temporarily boost cellular repair mechanisms during solar storms. Psychological stress is the invisible enemy. Confinement in cramped habitats, the monotony of recycled air, and the knowledge that a single hull breach could mean catastrophe. These pressures fray nerves over time. Lunar psychiatrists are pioneering environmental therapy modules, pressurized greenhouses where patients tend plants under full-spectrum lights, their cortisol levels dropping as they reconnect with growth and seasons. Virtual windows project real-time Earth vistas to combat the disorientation of living underground, while AI therapists trained on astronaut diaries offer discreet counseling during graveyard shifts. The goal isn't just to prevent breakdowns, but to cultivate resilience, because homesickness on the moon isn't a passing mood, it's a chronic condition to be managed. Surgery in space demands robotic precision. A bleeding appendix or compound fracture can't wait for evacuation to Earth, yet human hands shake, especially after months in low gravity. The answer lies in autonomous surgical pods like the EU's MERA system, which performed the first simulated lunar appendectomy in vacuum conditions last year. These self-contained units can be operated remotely by Earth-based surgeons or follow pre-programmed routines, their steady mechanical arms compensating for the lack of experienced lunar physicians. For complex cases, holographic telemedicine lets specialists step into the operating room via haptic gloves and 3D projections, guiding local medics through procedures as if they stood shoulder to shoulder. The boldest solutions may come from our own DNA. Scientists studying extremophiles organisms thriving in Earth's harshest environments are identifying genes that could help humans adapt. Tardigrade proteins that protect against radiation damage, or deep-sea worm enzymes that repair cells under crushing pressure, might one day be splicened into lunar settlers. CRISPR trials on the International Space Station have already shown promise in editing astronaut cells to resist muscle wasting. Some researchers speculate about gene doping temporary tweaks that activate during lunar stays, then revert upon return to Earth. It's controversial, yes, but so were vaccines and organ transplants in their time. What emerges isn't just health care, it's human upgrade. Lunar medicine will force us to confront biological limitations we've always taken for granted, turning settlers into living experiments in the next phase of our evolution. Every bone scan, every cognitive test, every gene therapy trial on the moon won't just save lives there. It'll redefine what's possible for humanity everywhere. The greatest medical revolution since penicillin might not come from a lab on Earth, but from a pressurized dome where doctors wage war against the cosmos itself, one fragile human body at a time. Community on the moon won't happen by accident. It'll be engineered with the same precision as airlocks and solar arrays. Picture a dining hall where the tables curve like crescent moons, designed so no one sits more than arm's reach from a conversation. Or virtual reality parks where settlers strap on headsets not to escape their world, but to share memories of Earth, collectively walking through simulations of Tokyo cherry blossoms or Brazilian carnivals, their laughter echoing through headsets as they reminisce about seasons that don't exist here. These spaces aren't amenities, they're social life support systems, counteracting the isolation of living inside what amounts to a high-tech cave. The psychology of lunar neighborhoods flips terrestrial norms upside down. Back on Earth, we might choose homes for square footage or school districts. On the moon, the most coveted real estate could hinge on something far more primal: who shares your airlock. Urban planners are prototyping cluster habitats, small groups of 6 to 8 families sharing a pressurized commons, like interstellar versions of co-housing communities. Each cluster becomes a self-reliant tribe, swapping childcare duties during grueling work shifts or pooling rations for impromptu celebrations. The genius lies in balance: enough privacy to recharge, enough proximity to prevent loneliness. Some concepts even borrow from submarine design, with quiet carols for solo reflection nestled between buzzing communal kitchens. Virtual spaces will stitch these pockets together into something resembling a city. With physical movement limited by airlock protocols and dust hazards, lunar metropolises might feel most alive in the digital realm. augmented reality could overlay corridors with floating notice boards where residents post memes or organize talent shows. A Swedish design firm proposes gravity pubs, rooms where adjustable centrifugal force lets patrons sip synthetic beer at Martian, lunar, or Earth gravity levels, their avatars visible to friends back home via laggy but heartfelt video feeds. The goal isn't to replace face-to-face interaction, but to create layers of connection that adapt to the moon's constraints. Cultural rituals will emerge from necessity. Without sunrise or sunset to mark time, settlers might adopt Earth hours, syncing their clocks to a hometown time zone for communal meals or video calls. Holidays could revolve around lunar milestones, the anniversary of first landing, the day the hydroponic garden yielded its first strawberries. Even grief will take new forms. Funerals might involve launching ashes into orbit, the deceased becoming literal stars in the sky above their former home. Anthropologists predict these customs will blend pragmatism with poetry, like the proposed Dust Festival, where residents coat their gloves in regolith and press handprints onto a communal mural, celebrating the substance that both threatens and sustains them. The ultimate test of lunar society won't be technological, it'll be emotional. Engineers can calculate oxygen needs down to the milliliter, but no algorithm can predict how humans will cope when a toddler asks why they can't feel rain. That's why the most forward-thinking designs incorporate empathy feedback loops, regular town halls where residents voice frustrations, or AI systems that detect social withdrawal and suggest interventions. A project by MIT's Space Exploration Initiative even prototypes conflict gardens, where arguing parties must collaborate to tend fragile plants, their shared responsibility literally bearing fruit from reconciliation. What unfolds is a radical experiment in intentional community. Unlike Earth cities that grow organically over centuries, lunar settlements will be conscious creations, every alleyway and gathering space designed to nurture bonds as carefully as radiation shields protect flesh. The structures we build there may outlast us, but it's the invisible architecture, the trust, the inside jokes, the unspoken rules about who gets the last chocolate bar, that will determine whether humanity's first off-world cities flourish or fracture. After all, a dome full of strangers is just a pressurized container. Turn them into neighbors and you've built a home. Living on the moon means accepting that disaster isn't a question of if, but when. A solar flare could bathe the surface in lethal radiation within minutes. A micrometeorite no larger than a pebble might rip through a habitat's wall, unleashing a deadly cascade of depressurization. Even something as mundane as a power outage could turn deadly when temperatures swing hundreds of degrees between sunlight and shadow. But lunar architects aren't just bracing for these threats, they're engineering civilizations that can shrug them off like cosmic dust. Redundancy is the golden rule. Picture life support systems with triple backups. If one oxygen generator fails, two others kick in seamlessly, buying time for repairs. Water recyclers aren't standalone units but nodes in a networked web, so a failure in one module reroutes flow to others. Even doors have a fail-safe philosophy, airlocks designed like Russian nesting dolls, where breaching one layer reveals another, slowing leaks to a crawl. The European Space Agency's Shelter project takes this further, prototyping habitats with sacrificial zones, isolated compartments that can be sealed and abandoned in emergencies, like a ship's bulkheads. But hardware alone isn't enough. Lunar settlers will train for disasters with an intensity that makes Earth's fire drills look quaint. Virtual reality simulations will immerse them in worst-case scenarios, practicing sealant injections on mock hull breaches while wearing bulky gloves, or rehearsing radiation shelter protocols in pitch darkness. Low gravity complicates everything. A spilled tool becomes a floating hazard, and CPR requires relearning the right amount of force to compress a chest without launching yourself backward. NASA Lunar Disaster Academy is already crafting curricula that blend astronaut survival training with wilderness first responder techniques, creating a new breed of first aid where stabilizing a patient might involve anchoring them to a wall. The most ingenious solutions come from the moon's own harshness. Solar storms, deep lava tubes offer natural shelters where settlers can ride out radiation surges, their walls blocking 99% of harmful particles. Dust storms clogging solar panels. Engineers are testing self-cleaning panels coated in electrostatic films that repel abrasive regolith. Even the ever-present threat of micrometeorites inspires innovation. Some habitats will wear chainmail outer layers, their interlocking ceramic scales flexing to absorb impacts without shattering. Urban planning weaves safety into every decision. Emergency shelters aren't afterthoughts but central nodes, placed within a 5-minute float of any residence. Corridors double as evacuation routes, their walls lined with handholds for rapid movement in low gravity. And because traditional sirens are useless in a vacuum, the entire habitat might pulse with colored lights: red for hull breach, blue for solar storm, a silent language of survival etched into the architecture. The ultimate lesson: lunar cities won't just endure disasters, they'll learn from them. Every near miss will trigger upgrades, turning each crisis into a stepping stone toward resilience. Safety here isn't a checklist, it's a culture woven into the very fabric of life under an alien sky. Because on the moon, survival isn't about avoiding the unthinkable, it's about being ready to rewrite the rules when the unthinkable arrives. Imagine soaring through a vaulted lunar dome with wings strapped to your arms, the moon's gentle gravity letting you glide like a falcon in slow motion. This isn't science fiction, it's the future of lunar tourism, where the very laws of physics become playground equipment. The moon's 1/6 gravity doesn't just reduce weight, it redefines movement itself. Volleyball nets stretch 10 meters high for matches where players bound like superheroes, while lunar gymnastics could feature spins so prolonged they'd make Olympic gold medalists gasp. Architects are already sketching low-gravity amphitheaters with tiered seating along crater walls, where audiences float between levels to grab snacks mid-performance. The thrill isn't just in the activities, but in the sheer novelty of feeling your body liberated from Earth's relentless pull. Hotels here won't compete on thread counts, they'll sell vistas. Picture a luxury suite where the entire ceiling is a reinforced window framing Earthrise, its blue swirls visible as you recline in a magnetic hammock designed to cradle you gently despite the weak gravity. Some concepts, like the orbit in chain proposed by a Dubai-based consortium, plan rotating modules that guarantee every guest gets a timed view of home. Even budget accommodations might offer crater view pods with virtual guides highlighting lunar landmarks through augmented reality windows. The experience starts before arrival. Descent vehicles could pivot during landing to give tourists a panoramic view of the Sea of Tranquility rushing up beneath them, a roller coaster finale to the ultimate commute. Entertainment takes on new dimensions when sound barely travels. Theaters might rely on bone conduction seats that vibrate with music, while dance clubs use subwoofers embedded in floors to let patrons feel beats through their boots. A Tokyo design firm's silent rave concept replaces DJs with light installations synchronized to personal earpieces, creating shared experiences without noisy disruptions to neighboring habitats. For quieter leisure, pressurized botanical domes could offer tea ceremonies amidst genetically dwarfed cherry trees, their petals falling in dreamy slow motion, a tranquil contrast to the adrenaline-fueled sports outside. The economic ripple effect could reshape lunar development. Guides specializing in eva-tourism might lead geology walks in reinforced excursion suits, pointing out meteorite impacts while monitoring oxygen levels. Local artisans could craft jewelry from fused regolith beads or bottled lunar dust labeled with coordinates of historic landing sites. Even the challenges become attractions. Souvenir shops might sell certificates proving you endured the 12-moon challenge, consuming an entire cycle's worth of recycled water in freeze-dried meals. But recreation here isn't just about profit, it's psychological survival. Studies on Antarctic bases show that monotony can be as dangerous as radiation, making diversions critical for long-term settlers. A lunar cinema screening Earth classics might boost morale more than any vitamin supplement, while a climbing wall mimicking Everest's ridges, scaled effortlessly in low gravity, could stave off cabin fever. The most visionary designs integrate play into infrastructure. A staircase in a residential hub might detour through a playful obstacle course, turning daily commutes into joyrides. What emerges is a leisure economy that mirrors the moon itself, simultaneously familiar and utterly alien. A round of golf might involve calculating parabolic trajectories no Earth course would demand, while a simple jog could become a strategic feat of momentum management. Yet amid these novelties, the deepest satisfaction may come from the simplest act, gazing back at Earth not as a distant dot, but as a place you can visit for lunch before returning to your vacation on the moon by dinner. The ultimate luxury isn't just low-gravity sports or panoramic views, it's the surreal privilege of calling two worlds home. The moon isn't humanity's final destination, it's our cosmic launchpad. Every dome pressurized, every acre of regolith farmed, every solar array angled toward the unblinking sun serves a dual purpose, sustaining life here while rehearsing for the greater leap to Mars. Think of lunar cities as prototypes dipped in cosmic lighter fluid. If a water recycler fails here, engineers can troubleshoot in days rather than the months it would take for a repair manual to reach a Martian colony. The moon's brutal environment acts as a controlled stress test, revealing flaws in systems we might otherwise carry blindly to the red planet, those dust-clogged joints on a lunar rover. Fix them now, and future Mars rovers won't freeze in the middle of Valles Marineris, that algae-based air purifier struggling with 16 straight days of darkness. Perfect it in the moon's long shadows before betting lives on it during Martian dust storms. Distance alone makes the moon an indispensable trainer. At just 3 days from Earth with current propulsion, it offers a safety net unimaginable for Mars missions. A medical emergency on the moon might mean evacuating a patient to Houston within the week. On Mars, help is 9 months and hundreds of millions of miles away. This proximity lets engineers iterate rapidly, turning each lunar habitat into a living lab where Martian life support systems undergo trial by vacuum. NASA Lunar Gateway Station embodies this philosophy. Its modular design mirrors concepts for Mars transit vehicles, allowing astronauts to practice deep space living while still within Earth's gravitational shadow. But the moon's true value lies in its differences. Mars tantalizes with its thin atmosphere and subterranean ice, but the moon's utter austerity forces innovation. Master regolith farming here, and Martian soil rich in perchlorates but far more Earth-like becomes arable by comparison. Learn to shield against the moon's relentless radiation, and Mars' weaker exposure seems almost manageable. Even the psychological playbook written for lunar settlers, how to combat Earthsickness in domes with no natural sunlight, how to sustain morale during 2 week nights, will be chapters reused for Martian crews. The technologies synergize in unexpected ways. Those molten salt batteries storing solar energy through the lunar night, they'll be half-sized on Mars where nights last just 12 hours. The 3D printed landing pads preventing dust clouds during lunar ascents, they'll prevent sandstorms from crippling Martian launch sites. And when we finally quarry Martian lava tubes for habitats, we'll do it with drills perfected in the Moon's ancient volcanic tunnels. This stepping stone philosophy extends beyond hardware. Lunar cities will birth the first generation of off-world bureaucrats, medics, and teachers people who understand that interplanetary living demands more than rockets and rations. Their hard-won lessons about governance, conflict resolution, and cultural preservation in closed environments will shape Martian constitutions. When the first child is born on the Moon, the resulting debates over citizenship and rights will preview the fiercer discussions awaiting Mars' first native-born settlers. The Moon isn't just a testbed, it's a translator, converting the abstract challenges of interplanetary life into concrete problems we can solve today. Every sunrise over a lunar greenhouse, every law passed in a subterranean council chamber, every gram of oxygen extracted from rock whispers the same truth. We're not just learning to survive on the Moon. We're rehearsing to thrive everywhere, convincing billions of Earth-bound skeptics that lunar cities are more than sci-fi fantasies, requires more than blueprints and budgets. It demands a narrative that tugs at humanity's shared curiosity and courage. The backlash isn't surprising. Why pour trillions into barren rock when Earth faces climate crises and inequality? Critics paint lunar ambitions as escapism for the ultra-wealthy, a cosmic vanity project. But advocates counter with a compelling trifecta: scientific necessity, economic potential, and the timeless human itch to explore. The key lies in reframing the debate. Lunar settlements aren't an alternative to solving Earth's problems, they're a catalyst. Every dollar spent perfecting closed-loop life support on the Moon could revolutionize water-scarce regions back home. Radiation shielding breakthroughs might yield cheaper cancer treatments. Even the skeptic's favorite argument, fix Earth first, crumbles when lunar tech becomes Earth tech in disguise. Storytelling here isn't just marketing, it's bridge building. NASA Artemis Generation campaign doesn't lead with engineering specs. It showcases a Latina astronaut gazing at Earthrise through a future habitat window, her gloved hand brushing the reinforced glass. The European Space Agency's lunar village animations don't drone about regolith sintering rates. They follow a child born on the Moon as she tends hydroponic strawberries, her laughter echoing through a dome dappled with artificial sunlight. These narratives humanize the abstract, transforming skeptics into participants. The most effective messengers aren't always scientists. When a Nigerian poet writes about lunar dust as the new Sahara, or when Inuit elders compare lava tube habitats to ancestral ice shelters, the vision transcends laboratories and boardrooms. Transparency about failures is equally vital. The public can stomach exploding rockets if they understand each fiery lesson inches us closer to reliability. Japan's space agency set a masterclass in this after their lunar lander tipped over. They released raw footage of the mishap alongside engineers' candid diagnostics, turning a setback into a shared puzzle for millions to ponder. Even cost concerns can be disarmed with stark comparisons. The Apollo program consumed 4% of the US federal budget at its peak, yet birthed technologies from MRI machines to cordless tools. Today's lunar projects cost fractions of that, funded increasingly by private-public hybrids where corporations shoulder risks for downstream profits. The ultimate sell isn't practicality, it's legacy. When a Bahraini student interviews a lunar architect for her school project, or when a Brazilian faveler watches a live stream of robots printing a moon base, the dream ceases to belong to governments and billionaires. It becomes a shared heirloom, proof that humanity's gaze still reaches beyond the horizon. The moon's first city won't rise from silicon and solar panels alone. It'll be built on something far more powerful. 7 billion people looking up and whispering, "What if?" The vision of lunar cities stretches far beyond steel and glass. It's a mirror reflecting humanity's boldest ambitions. What began as sketches in pulp magazines and blueprints in university labs is now crystallizing into a reality where children might one day ask their grandparents, "What was it like when humans only lived on Earth?" Every innovation from radiation-deflecting regolith bricks to bioluminescent algae lighting isn't just solving a problem, it's rewriting the story of what's possible. The artists painting lunar murals and the engineers calibrating airlock pressures are united by something deeper than technology, the belief that frontiers exist to be crossed, not just visited. This isn't merely about survival in vacuum and dust. It's about proving that civilization can root itself anywhere, that a species born in savannas and forests can thrive under domes etched against the star-flecked black. The moon's challenges are brutal, but they're also gifts in disguise. Its lack of atmosphere forces us to master closed-loop systems that could heal Earth resource crises. Its silence teaches us to design communities where connection is intentional, not incidental. Even its barrenness is a blank slate, free of the political and environmental scars that burden terrestrial construction. Yet the most profound transformation might be internal. Lunar living demands we shed old assumptions about borders, ownership, and progress. A city where oxygen is rationed by algorithms and every drop of water is communal property challenges the very notion of individualism. The first legal disputes over lunar mining rights or the first kindergarten class taught in low gravity will ripple back to Earth, offering templates for collaboration in an age of climate crises and fracturing societies. So what's next? The answer lies not just in labs and boardrooms, but in living rooms and classrooms. When a teenager in Mumbai watches a live stream of molten regolith being poured into habitat molds, or when a retiree in Buenos Aires debates the ethics of lunar gene editing over coffee, the dream becomes collective. This isn't NASA, Moon, or Elon Musk's, it's humanity's shared workshop, a place to tinker with the future before taking it to Mars and beyond. The final blueprint won't be drawn by any single hand. It'll emerge from the clash and meld of 1,000 perspectives. Indigenous scholars insisting on lunar stewardship, engineers optimizing for safety, poets demanding beauty amid the pragmatism. That's the true promise, not just new cities, but new ways of being. As the first foundations rise from the dust, they'll carry the fingerprints of everyone who dared to look up and whisper, "We could live there." And that's worth every ounce of effort. Your turn. Hit like if you'd book a ticket to see Earthrise from a lunar cafe, or subscribe to join our ongoing exploration of humanity's next chapter. Drop a comment. Would you volunteer to tend lunar hydroponic gardens, or would you rather design zero-gravity sports? The conversation starts here, but it certainly doesn't end here. The cosmos is listening.